Lena clutched her keys, the brass cold against her palm. Apartment 3B. Hers. The building stood silent, shrouded in the dusk of a city evening. It seemed to lean inwards, shadows gathering in its corners like secrets. Inside, the air hung heavy, thick with the must of old lives and forgotten stories. Lena shivered. Her footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as she made her way to her apartment.
Don't mind the noises. Old building. Settles. Lena unlocked the door to 3B and stepped inside. The apartment was small, just a single room with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but the rent was cheap, and the location was perfect for her quiet, solitary life. She set her bags down on the worn hardwood floor and surveyed her new home. A chill ran down Lena's spine, a prickle of unease that had nothing to do with the temperature.
That night, Lena lay awake. The city sounds, usually a comforting lullaby, were swallowed by the silence of the apartment. The darkness felt heavy, oppressive. She tossed and turned, her sheets twisting around her like phantom limbs. Just as she was drifting off, a sound cut through the silence. A whisper, soft, indistinct, but undeniably there. Lena sat up in bed, her heart pounding against her ribs. She strained to hear, her senses on high alert. The whisper came again, a sibilant murmur that seemed to slither from the very walls themselves. It was close, too close, right outside her door. She held her breath, paralyzed by a fear she couldn't explain. The whispers faded, then disappeared completely. She wasn't alone in apartment 3B. The next morning, Lena tried to dismiss the whispers as a figment of her imagination. She went about her day, unpacking boxes and trying to make the apartment feel like home. But the unsettling feeling persisted, a nagging unease that clung to her like a shadow. That evening, while sorting through her books, she noticed something strange. On the back of her bookshelf, hidden behind a loose panel, was a small rectangular piece of paper. It was a note, written in a spidery, almost illegible hand. "Don't trust the whispers," it read. "They're trying to trick you." Lena stared at the note, her blood turning to ice. This wasn't a figment of her imagination. Someone or something was trying to communicate with her. Panic welled up inside her, threatening to consume her. She had to get out of the apartment. She grabbed her phone and called the superintendent, her voice shaking.
"There's something wrong with my apartment. There are messages."
Look, lady, this is an old building. Probably some kid's prank. Just ignore it.
Lena began researching the building's history. She learned that Meredith had lived in apartment 3B before her. Meredith had died there, but details were scarce. The whispers and the note pointed to Meredith. But who was she and what did she want? The whispers grew stronger, more insistent. They surrounded Lena, taunting her. She felt a constant sense of dread. One night, Lena set up her phone to record. She lay in bed, tense, listening. Suddenly, a cold spot settled over the room. The air grew heavy. Then she saw it. A figure materialized in the doorway. It was a woman. Lena knew it was Meredith.
Whispering, "Lena!"
Terror choked Lena's scream. The figure glided closer, its eyes glowing embers. Then it vanished. Lena scrambled out of bed, heart pounding. Desperate for answers, Lena began to search for any trace of Meredith's presence in the apartment. She moved furniture, checked under floorboards, even examined the wiring, hoping to find something, anything, that could shed light on the mysterious events. Her search led her to the back of the bedroom closet, where a section of the wall felt suspiciously loose. With a grunt, she pushed against the paneling. To her surprise, it swung inwards, revealing a small hidden alcove. Inside, the air was stale and thick with dust. A single cobweb-covered shelf held a small wooden box, its surface scratched and faded. Lena reached for the box, her fingers trembling. As her fingertips brushed against the rough wood, the whispers in the room reached a fever pitch, a chorus of voices swirling around her. Ignoring the overwhelming urge to flee, Lena took a deep breath and lifted the box from the shelf. With a mix of trepidation and morbid curiosity, Lena lifted the lid of the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a leather-bound journal. Its pages were yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. This was Meredith's journal, a chronicle of her final days in apartment 3B. Lena opened the journal and began to read.
She too had heard the whispers, had been plagued by the same unsettling feeling of being watched. She wrote of shadows moving in the corners of her eyes, of voices whispering her name in the dead of night. The growing paranoia, the overwhelming feeling of dread that consumed her every waking moment.
As Lena read, she felt a cold hand grip her heart. Meredith's words were like looking into a mirror, reflecting back her own growing fear and despair. One entry, dated just a few days before Meredith's death, stood out from the rest. The handwriting was frantic, desperate, the words scrawled across the page with a shaking hand.
They're here. The whispers told me they wouldn't harm me, that they just wanted to help, but they lied.
The final entry ended abruptly, the rest of the page blank. Lena closed the journal, her stomach churning. That night, the whispers returned with a vengeance. They were no longer soft murmurs but a cacophony of voices, swirling around Lena, taunting her with Meredith's fate. She tried to block them out, but they were relentless, seeping into her mind, filling her with terror. Then, she saw her, Meredith. She stood at the foot of the bed, her eyes burning like hot coals. Her face, once beautiful, was now twisted in a grotesque mockery of a smile.
You shouldn't have come here. This place is cursed. And now you're trapped here with me.
Lena cowered back against the headboard, her breath catching in her throat. She wanted to scream, to run, but she was frozen in place, paralyzed by fear. Meredith drifted closer, her form flickering like a candle in the wind.
Don't fight it. It's our destiny now. We're bound to this place, you and I. We'll be together forever.
Lena shut her eyes tight, tears streaming down her face. She didn't want this. She didn't want to become another Meredith, another lost soul trapped within the walls of apartment 3B. But as Meredith's icy fingers brushed against her cheek, she knew it was already too late. The whispers had claimed her. The cycle had begun again. A few weeks later, a young woman named Sarah stood outside apartment 3B, clutching her keys. The building seemed to sag under the weight of the city, its brick facade grimy and weathered. She took a deep breath, trying to ignore the tremor of unease that ran through her. The superintendent gave her a cursory nod and retreated down the hallway.
Don't mind the noises. Old building, settles.
Sarah pushed open the door to apartment 3B and stepped inside. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of dust and something faintly sweet. She shivered, pulling her sweater tighter around her. The apartment was small, dimly lit, with a single window overlooking a dingy alleyway. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, Sarah couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was a fresh start. She set her bags down and surveyed her new home. It wasn't much, but it was hers. At least she hoped it was. That night, Sarah lay awake, her sleep disturbed by the unfamiliar noises of the old building. The city sounds, usually a comforting lullaby, were muffled, as if the very walls themselves were trying to smother them. She tossed and turned, her mind racing with anxieties about her new life in the city. Just as she was drifting off, a sound cut through the silence. A whisper, soft and indistinct, yet undeniably there. It seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves, slithering into her consciousness.
Sarah sat up in bed, her heart pounding against her ribs. She strained to hear, her senses on high alert. The whisper came again, a sibilant murmur that seemed to slither from the very walls themselves. It was close, too close, right outside her door. She held her breath, paralyzed by a fear she couldn't explain. A cold spot settled over the room and the air grew heavy, difficult to breathe.
Then she saw it. The cycle had begun again.